Hello and welcome to our first of, we're hoping 5 installments, maybe more, hopefully not too many, too much less, of Privacy in the Trenches. This is a brainchild of Emily and mine. We are, instead of looking at the people that have been in privacy for a long time, we're looking at people that are penned to deal with privacy in an organization. Maybe they came from privacy in the past. Many cases they didn't. They were either in charge of IT or compliance or something, but now they are in charge of privacy, which can be a real daunting task as it's been getting bigger and bigger. I'm Aaron Stevens. I'm one of the head of business development at Divebell, and with me,
I am Emily Leach. I am the content director at Ethos Privacy. And we are joined here today by Sharon Russell, who is the head of IT security, compliance, and privacy at Cloud DX. So thank you so much, Sharon. We appreciate you being our first guinea pig here for this series. So we thought we'd kick things off by just learning a little bit about how you got started in privacy. So if you could tell us a little bit about your path.
Certainly. So I got started in privacy in, I think, around 2011. I had been hired by a software company as a project manager and client delivery manager, relationship manager. They were a smaller company. And because I had project management background, my first day or two on the job, it was identified that they had a corporate project that was getting ready for their SOC audit, which back then was not called SOC yet. And they said, oh, Sharon, you know what? You could manage this for us. So this started me doing the project management to get all of our different policies in place and the compliance program in place. Once we had done that and we had completed our first audit and had the program up and running, I was then tasked with adding privacy into the mix. So then I went through the whole thing again with developing the privacy policies and working through to ensure that our privacy program was set up so we could add the privacy into the audits. And that was what started me, and I've been in privacy and compliance ever since.
so it sounds like you basically got poked. Like they were like, hey, you're the one in charge of this now, and we wash our hands of it. Is that kind of what? Yes.
Yeah.
So
yes, they had selected the auditor, and the auditor had come in and done a presentation prior to my arrival at the company. So everybody in the company knew what had to be done, and I was hired, and it was, here you go, Sharon, do it.
they all got to do the sidestep. Whoa, this sounds like a pain in the neck. Sharon, you do it.
So how did you dig your, sink your teeth into it? Having come from a place, compliance, obviously there's some overlap there, but not really knowing about privacy. How did you start learning about it? What did you go to?
Yeah, so I was lucky because I started with the compliance side of it, with its security policies and all of the other areas that needed to be built out from a policy point of view and then added into a program. And so by the time I got to privacy and I started doing some research as the company had said, okay, we're doing privacy now, I realized very quickly that in order to do it properly and in order for it to be meaningful, I needed to have some education. So at that point, I went to the owner of the company and I said, hey, I have no problem doing this for you, but I'm not doing it without having the proper education and some training in place, as well as, some supporting from it. So they were agreeable, and I took the CIPT course through the IAPP and got my CIPT, which allowed me to get some background and then some resources and just jump right in. Yes.
So you said CIPT, was that back? Was it when you took it? Was it CIPP IT?
IT. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Back in the old days.
Back in the old days. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's hard though. I mean, the fact that you could find that. I mean, we started in 2011. I think I got into privacy in 2012. And I told my friends I was in privacy, and they're like, "What?
What's that mean?"
Like, yeah, I closed the door. And the same,
I was privacy and compliance. I ended up running the programs after we had implemented them. And I became the compliance officer and the privacy officer. And it was still, oh my God, here comes Sharon. She's coming down the hall. Hide. She
Right.
wants something.
That's perfect, because that actually,
she's gonna tell me exactly what I can't do.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
so that actually leads into a really interesting question. Like, how do you avoid being the department of no?
How long do we have?
Right? How does
Yes.
that?
Well,
how do you
I think-
do that?
Yeah, so I think that if I look back over the years to where I am now, because I'm now in a smaller company that is formalizing their privacy and compliance program. And I've started with them approximately 6 or 7 months ago. And the whole introduction that I've tried to do from day one is from an educational and a coaching point of view. So that people are understanding what it means to safeguard personal information, to safeguard personal health information, and our client data and our client, how we work with our client data, so that they understand that we're doing this, and I'm doing this not to say no, but to enable us and to make us a differentiator in the space. So if we know where and what data we have and we're safeguarding it correctly, then we have the opportunity to take advantage and show that to our customers on an ongoing basis, obviously through our audits and just being, best practices. And two, we can talk about it with potential customers because we're enabling ourselves and them also to have safer protection around their data or their clients, our clients, our customers' clients' data.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel too like it's something that people can empathize with, right? When you go to, someone on, in another team in the organization, you say, well, we have to protect these people's data because it's important to them. I think you can project that onto yourself and say, right, I'd want someone to be protecting my data, so I think there's probably a little bit of that.
I think that, again, one of the silver linings potentially from the pandemic that we just went through is business and safeguarding personal information from a business point of view, and individuals' personal information, and ensuring that a business is safeguarding an individual's personal information is no longer separated because people did not look at them in the same view. And today, because we're in a digital world, what happens with us and our customers' personal data could directly be the same thing that's happening to one of our employees' personal data. So there isn't a line, there's no longer a differentiator between my data personally, that whatever happens, and at work. So one of the things that I'm trying to do and make sure that in my education with the organization is that we're not just doing it for our customers' data. I need to ensure that my staff and that the employees in my company can safeguard their own data. So phishing simulations, all of that, so that they understand, because it doesn't just work from 9 to 5. The tools that we're trying to give happen personally as well as in the business world. So the better equipped my employees are to understand, and something as simple as the phishing simulations, the less risk that we have, one for our customers, but also personally for the employees themselves.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
I think the title of this segment is what's going on here. So less than a year ago, you were hired by Cloud DX, and they brought you in to batten down the hatches, clean the stalls, get everything. So you got your password and you got your laptop and you got your credentials to get into stuff. What was next?
So next was just starting to ask questions and to understand the lay of the land. And as I asked a question, identify that the answer to that question generally creates 5, 10, 15, 20 additional questions. And again, in a positive, friendly coaching, mentoring conversation, understand where and what personal information is, where in the company, and how it's being looked after today, so we can do a better job. So it's, again, we have to know our current state. We have to know what we have, where we have it, how it's used. And then from there, we can look at that being the foundation to build out how we can do it better and how we can do it more efficiently and how we can do a better job of safeguarding, and also letting our customers know that we're not just meeting the minimum, that we are, we know the stakes, and we're surpassing the minimum to do what we can to ensure that personal information is safeguarded.
How did you do that? How did you inform your client base? How did you let them know that this was becoming more important to the organization?
So that is a work in progress. One of the things that I am starting with for the most part is understanding internally how we are and what's going on and what we need to do, and putting that roadmap and that plan together so I can talk to my customers and to the customers in such a way that we might not have everything in place today. Here's the specifics that we have, or here's that baseline that we know we have to have, and here's our plan, and here's our roadmap, and how we can work with the customer. So that's more of a phase 2, because I want to have a really good story to tell to our customers, but I also want to be honest with them and straightforward to be able to tell them where we are today and how we can get to that next level. I want to be able to be telling them this is the baseline and we're good at this point, and now we can grow from there.
Interesting.
And what do you have as kind of, is there kind of a high water mark that you're looking for? Like when we, or was there at some point where you said, okay, now we're at a place where we can start communicating this outwardly? Is there kind of a get over a hump kind of feeling?
There isn't a line in the sand, let's say, for that. It's more as I engage more internally with the different stakeholders and with the teams that talk to the customers and that are customer facing. I have a lot of conversations with them when there's questions from our customers. They bring me in, so they are introducing me to our customer base as there's questions coming up, as we do RFPs, or we do annual assessments, or we're talking with new customers about things we're going to do. I am getting involved and being more visible with those conversations to take on and have those conversations. But I do a lot of work today with the team that's in front of the customer, because it's really important that it isn't just me talking to the customer as this resource here off to the side. It's the whole organization. So that customer facing team is educated and understand and is aware, and they deal with that customer all of the time directly. So they're also in a position that we're able to talk through them and with them, and they own a seat at the table as well, to show that this is across the organization. All of us are concerned. All of it. This is something that the company takes very seriously. So we're all involved and we're all embedded in making this work.
Excellent. It sounds like you've got leadership buy-in in like a sort of a very strong way. I mean, I think one of the challenges out there is that they'll hire someone to come in and deal with this, but they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to worry about it. They just don't want to have to, worry, think about litigation or anything like that. One of the things that you'd said, and this is from me being a 25-year-old sales guy, how hard is it to talk to the salespeople about compliance and privacy and why it's important? I mean, like, unless it proves to be dollar signs to them, not to be offensive, but how do you get that across to those guys?
But it is dollar signs, because by doing what we do and going beyond that baseline and having a really good program and being able to talk to how we're safeguarding the personal information of our customers and their clients, that translates into dollar signs, because they can then go and they can say, we're different. This is a differentiator. We're not just talking the talk, we're walking the talk. And again, I think with the pandemic and with the last couple of years and it being much more visible, it's not a nice to have. Like, it's an important conversation. So if we're in front of that conversation and we're able to have that conversation with us bringing it up, it provides much more value than having to answer questions and seem like we're we're slow in responding, or that, we're giving the runaround. So the more, again, education that we can be doing internally in the company to make sure that the sales team and the support team know what's going on and they can talk to it, the better we are. So we are in the process of getting ready to do our first SOC audit. And so that's something we talk about in our staff meetings once a month, and where we are with the progress and what's going on. So the whole team and the whole organization is engaged in understanding that we're not just doing this to sell, but we're doing this because it's important to the organization. And that buy-in from the executive is talked to every month when we give our progress updates of where we are. So it's the sales team understands, they hear it, we're talking about it. It's something that's very visible in the organization. And so that is an easier way for them to sell it because they can talk to it.
Yeah, for sure. Can you talk about some of the other methods you use to educate staff? I'm sure there's probably a formal training process, but like obviously it sounds like having that leadership buy-in and having it be a consistent conversation are a couple of things that seem to be working well. Can you just speak to some other things that work well in that area?
Just building relationships, going out and having conversations with the different areas of the business. Not everybody interacts with the personal information the same. So it's understanding that they might not think that's as important to their business unit. But when we have the conversations and start talking about things, then they see that, oh yeah, no, actually, maybe it is. So it's building that relationship and building the connection that it isn't vertical. It's, let's look across and see. And maybe there are some areas of the business where it touches at a higher level or it's not direct, but the impact of that department and how they manage things could ultimately have a direct impact on it downstream or upstream, having a negative impact. So it's, again, understanding strategically and across the organization how working together and how having this information and understanding it benefits everybody. And I think the other thing with it is just making myself available, that the business, getting to know the business and doing the relationship building is great, but it's available, asking questions, trying to find out what the different business units do and asking the questions, and then talking with them about it and how I can help them make things better, and how we can do things better and streamline things. Again, bringing in doing the prep for the SOC and bringing in some new policies and procedures and processes. It's an opportunity in a positive way to have another conversation of where there's some things that maybe are manual today that are really hard to do, that it is not necessarily specifically a personal information conversation, but it has that impact on it. So if we can be automating things, or we can be streamlining things, or we can be letting other departments know certain things that are going on, then again, that whole process is improved and becomes more efficient. And that helps us overall as an organization, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you get in, you figure out what you've got going on, and then you interview everybody in all of these different departments to understand what they're doing. Now, are you documenting everything as you go, or is this sort of like well, you kind of said this and now you kind of do this, so you're not really doing what you say you're doing? I mean, one of the things that I have found in my experience in privacy is that you go into these companies and they're like, oh, we have a policy for that. You're like, okay, and what do you do after that? Oh, we got a policy.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's great. And we downloaded it from the internet and we put our name on it. So now we have a privacy policy that's on our website. Like, well, are you doing any of the things? And it literally, it's like deer in the headlights. So, oh, you were serious about that?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. When you showed up, did they have some stuff in place and you're just sort of like, look, we gotta tune this up?
So I was very lucky because the Cloud DX has familiarity and has already been doing audits on the regulatory side of the business. So there are some pieces around privacy and around security that they were already aware of and doing to fulfill the requirements for the regulatory side of the business. So I didn't come in with nobody, like with a deer in the headlights, for nobody had any idea what anything was. They all knew what audits were. They all knew what policies were.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's more formalizing because they have all these things in place. and they follow them, but they follow them as a process for audit, which again is a standard that most companies do. Oh, we have to do this for our audit, you know, and they don't have that connection of, no, if this became our business as usual, it would support the audit at the end, but you're doing it all along. So again, that education is trying to go, okay, so we have all of these things in place. You guys have been doing this, but let's make it part of our day-to-day business. Let's move it beyond an audit function to how we run the business and how we drive the business. And that, again, gives visibility for people to understand the importance of it and why they want to safeguard it. Because I think most people don't take for granted, or as a human, we just assume that everybody's trusting and everybody's, you know, everybody wants to trust. So data is safe. Personal information is safe because nobody, very few people would go out and try to do something malicious. But, and that's great, except that it's more than that, that we can't just assume. We need to, you know, so having that education of, yep, no, we're not doing this because we think someone's going to do something wrong. We're doing it because we want to be able to say, yeah, we do this. And look, it's, if somebody did try to do it, we're good. We could, you know, we've got this in place, so we're safe.
Totally. And so because of, you know, the strong audit regime that you were all going through, did you feel like people had a good handle on what data they used and how they used it? I know in my experience with the clients, oftentimes you start asking those questions and, you know, it's a ball of yarn a little bit. And people don't necessarily recognize the data that they use and what they do with it. So was that the case, or?
Yeah, I think that the lens that people have been using has been at an audit level and as a, I'm not going to say chunk, but at a higher level. So, oh, personal information. Yes, we know we use personal information, but it stays as personal information. So it's drilling down now into that. Well, what type of personal information? So we can talk high level across the board. We have the data flows. We can see where the personal information flows through the company. We can easily say that we're safeguarding it. We've got no concerns. And now for me, it's like kind of lifting the, you know, okay, so yeah, personal information is secure, but now let's do the second pass. Let's lift the carpet a little bit and let's look now at individual data points and data elements. And let's talk through these and what that means so that we can talk not just at this high level, but we can talk down for the details of the actual data that we store, that we, you know, that we have on behalf of our customers, and we can talk to it at that element level so that we can ensure that it's safe.
Do you feel, I mean, it's certainly when you start with a new organization and they penned you as the sucker that has to deal with privacy, do you feel like it's a boulder that you just got to get going, and then once you get it going, you're going to be okay, and then you're just kind of doing maintenance? Or is it different because business changes, concerns change, laws change? Like, is this always going to be a lift, or do you feel like that in time it'll be an easier thing to manage?
I think that once we have the fundamental program in place and we know our current state and everything's good, that it's a living and breathing process and way, because you're going to have new lines of business, you're going to have new customers. So it's very fluid in the sense that I don't have the stamp in the box here and everything's good and nothing changes and it's static. But I think the ability to move and change and grow and you know, that ebb and flow and how the data is used differently is easier to manage, and the buy-in is already there and everybody already knows. So the team is coming to me, oh, Sharon, we're going to be, you know, we're looking at doing this, and so we just want to have a conversation. What does this mean? Are we good to do this, or, you know, what do we do? And then it's like, okay, well, let's sit down and have a you you know, one, it's awesome because they're coming to me, and two, it's like, okay, let's talk about it, so that I'm never the policeman with the stick until I have to be because nothing else has worked. And even then, I'm not the policeman with the stick to beat the people up. It's more, hang on a second, is there a better way to do this?
Yeah.
I get that this is what
more
you
like
guys
guardrails, right?
Yes.
Like And it sounds very eerily to me like privacy by design. I don't know. I don't want to just throw
Yeah.
terms out there.
Well, it sounds like you've done a really good job getting yourself a seat at the table. And that's an amazing thing to be able to have as a privacy professional, because I know that's a challenge that, I mean, it's that bolt on at the end versus the privacy by design baked in at the beginning, right? And it sounds like you have the ability in your organization to really do that privacy by design because you have that seat.
Is this something you enjoy?
I do. I'm very passionate. I found when I took that course, when I said, if I'm going to be doing privacy and setting up a privacy program, I need to be educated. It was like, this makes so much sense. I totally get this. This is not common sense in the sense of, but just, it makes sense. We should be safeguarding data, and personal information is great, and it's an enabler and it's a differentiator, and safeguarding it can make your business so much stronger. And at the same time, data can be used to grow the business, to help people, but it all has to be done in the proper way. And it's ensuring it's safeguarded and ensuring you have consent, and just that whole, this wonderful thing of personal information is awesome. And if we're using it and working together and understand it, and everybody, it's not something that you don't talk about. It's at the table, it's there, it's a big piece of what drives the business internally, then it's awesome. So yeah, I'm very passionate about understanding this is a great path. We're just starting with understanding personal information and privacy, and being able to move that to drive the business in a proper way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
My last question, I got one more question.
Go.
Do you want to do it again? Like, once you get Cloud DX up and running and humming along, do you think you would be interested in moving on and starting somebody else all over again? Or is this the kind of thing where you've built your castle, you've made it comfortable, you've got your policies in place, everybody respects you, you've got leadership buy-in, and all right, I've built this, we're good to go. I'm gonna, continue to do the work, but I'm gonna enjoy sort of the satisfaction of having done that? Or are you one of those people that just likes abuse?
Yeah, right now it's exciting because the buy-in from the executive, as we've talked about, it's such a big thing. So it's different than other places in the past where you've been fighting and it's one step forward and 3 steps back. Having the executive on board and the executive helping to drive it totally changes the journey that I'm on and the company's on, because we're embracing it, and it changes everything that you do and how you build it. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying getting us to that point. I'm enjoying seeing when we're there, as we're just going to continue growing the business. So what does that mean? It's never going to be, this is all we're doing. There's so many opportunities for us that I don't ever see it becoming a static or a stagnant line that way. It's just going to be up and up. I do enjoy the thrill of building something, but right now I'm enjoying that I'm building, and I've got the executive support, and we have a good path to see, and there's tons of opportunity for us. So I don't see it ever getting boring anytime soon.
No, I don't think that the lawmakers around the world are ever going to let it get boring for us. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much, Sharon. This was awesome.
We really appreciate you being the guinea pig on our first episode.
Yeah, great to learn from you and learn what works, and understand.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
And we wish you the very best. I mean, it seems like you're on the right path with certainly the executive buy-in. That's huge. So
yeah, for sure.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sharon. Have a great rest of your day.
So our next episode will be, I don't know, a couple weeks or so. And we're hoping to have this be a 5-part series. And of course, Sharon Russell was our very first one. So thank you all.